Hello, everybody. My name is Zach Cleaver, and this is Module 13 case study for EDL 853. In this scenario, I will be playing the role of the principal of Nine in high school. We will be discussing the case of Miguel Hernandez, who is a student at our school. We will be talking about his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez. Ms. Guzman is a counselor at our school, and Howard Carey is the lawyer representing the Hernandezes. Kind of to summarize this case study, Miguel is a student that plays football at our school. He got injured in a tragic accident during a high school football game and was paralyzed from the waist down. Doctors released him to come back to school in a wheelchair, and we told the Hernandezes that we'd be making accommodations for him. However, whenever he came back to school, classes got switched due to lack of funding for ADA compliance. We did get a call from his mother expressing displeasure in this, and when no changes were made, the parents got a lawyer, and he came and informed us that we were violating Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. So what should have been done prior? I do firmly believe there was a lack of open communication in the scenario. It seems like during those 2 weeks and right before he came back, there was really no meetings about Miguel. We should have formed a team for him. This should have involved not only myself and another admin, but the counselors, maybe some teachers, Miguel's parents, and Miguel himself. We should have taken time out to form an agreement, put that in writing, and had it signed by all parties once we reached an agreement on what accommodations would be made. And then maybe even walk through the accommodations to make sure all parties at the school were on the same page. And if not, we could have adjusted it before this became an issue on day one of him coming back. So what happened? Due to a lack of communication, planning, and preparation, a physically disabled student was not granted access to a classroom. Miguel does qualify for the American Disability Act due to the fact he's in a wheelchair. However, due to lack of funding in our district, not all ADA compliances were met. And he is on a 504 plan, and we did not meet with the parents or him and form a team to set accommodations for him. Ways we could have avoided this situation, I think opening up communication lines would have been great from the get-go. If we could have had an agreement on accommodations with the parents and with him, I do believe that things would have run a lot smoother. When parents are a part of a team, they have a little more say in the situation, and that way if there is displeasure, you can avoid that scenario happening on the first day of school. I also think that we didn't involve enough stakeholders. We didn't involve a counselor. We didn't involve teachers. And this situation clearly does involve those, and they weren't involved in the process of making a team. And then, of course, we didn't talk to Miguel. I'm sure after this accident, all he's thinking about is how do I get back to school and go back to normalcy. And to tell him the first day that he's not going to be able to go back to a class that he was taking before is not fair to him at all. To talk about liability, this was a sports accident. As tragic as it is, they do happen. It could be covered partially by school insurance. I know at our school we do provide some. I don't know the actual policy on that, so I would have to look. There is no blame to the opposing player. There was no malice involved in the accident. It was just a freak accident. However, costs and continued care would fall onto the parents. That does take a little bit of play into this because due to the fact that it is going to cost them a lot, it's been a tragic accident to their son. We should be more accommodating as a district and show a little more compassion, and especially whenever he came back to school, we should have been, very accommodating in a caring environment. And of course, a lawsuit or added ADA accommodations that we would have to do would cost the district some money as well. The first calls I would have made as soon as Mrs. Hernandez called me, I definitely would have called our head of human resources and superintendent, informed them what was happening, and had discussions with them. Our counselor, I would have definitely talked to Ms. Guzman, talked to her about why this scenario was happening, why I was not informed on it, and how we could make it right. Also talking to teachers and finding out their perspectives on it would also help. Consulting my other administrators, and then figuring out what's future steps and meetings need to take place in the near future and the distant future would be key. So some of the options that I've laid up three options. The first option is, of course, that you take a firm stance on doing nothing. You explain the problem that we have with the room, it not being ADA compliant to the parent. You explain that why he cannot take the biology class that he wants. We are making an adjustment in schedule to another class that does meet his requirement for graduation. And we talk about other accommodations that the counselor has made to his schedule due to the fact that our school is not ADA compliant. The next option is to make the class available. I think understanding their side to the fact that he wants to take the class and that he's formed a relationship maybe with teachers, class mates, and also probably understanding the material and making sure that those accommodations can be made and that FAPE can be carried out. I do believe this could be done by changing rooms, maybe talking about how we can keep constant communication together. And I do think that making this does show that we are empathizing with the family and trying to make good on our accommodations for not only us, but for their side as well. Option three, this one costs the most money. This would be to keep the schedule before the accident, to build a ramp at the district expense for that classroom, and make sure all the other classes that Miguel has meet ADA requirements, have ramps, and then of course adjust accordingly. You'd have to adjust your budget, try to allocate that money, even if I don't know if that's even possible. But again, that's probably the most costly option. However, I think that there is an option four, and that's meeting with Ms. Guzman and the parents, which should have been done at the beginning. This meeting should have occurred at the very beginning, and it should occur now. We should talk about solutions. I think that parents that can voice their opinion and get some stuff off their chest, it might actually help out the situation. So hearing them out on their concerns, and then apologies always go a long way. I think apologizing for the fact that we did not handle this correctly and how can we make it better in the future, and showing our understanding and showing the fact that we generally do care about his well-being and their well-being as parents. And then I also think this sets a precedent for our school moving forward on what we need to look for, how we need to start handling meetings in the future, and how we need to handle student, parent, teacher, counselor, and administration relationships. The last thing is, we've been discussing caring cultures and how all students, parents, and community members need to know that our school is a caring environment. We are a team. We're a team of not only educators and administrators, but parents and students as well. And that we need to show that we are compassionate towards all students, especially students that have a disability and maybe have a hardship that they still are trying to come to school and they're still trying to get the same education that every other student is trying to get. And we need to do a good job as a school of providing education for all students and whatever they need. And last but not least, I really think that creating this caring culture is not only a great thing for the students, it's a great thing for parents, it's a great thing for our school image, and it's a great thing for the community in general. My final thoughts on this are that the scenario really taught me a lot about how open communication needs to happen, and how, as an administrator, you need to be able to think in the future and think about, not worst possible scenarios, but how can we set kids first? And I think in this scenario, we really didn't. I hope that if I was an administrator in this scenario and one of my students got hurt, is that I would definitely have an open line of communication with him and his parents on, whenever we get him back, what are we going to do? And how are we going to make his life as easy as possible moving forward? And I feel like in this scenario, that really wasn't done very well. But I think it is a great scenario for an aspiring administrator to see and hopefully learn from. Thank you.